listen, our first guest this evening, one of those who's the envy of all working actors, because in 1983, he went directly from graduating from the theater studies department at Yale University to landing an off-Broadway role in Macbeth. So fast forward to 1993, and then he's the Tommy and the narrator, Tommy narrator in The Who's Tommy Broadway, and gets his first Tony Award nomination for his very first Broadway show he was ever in. Then in 2000, he premieres in London's West End in the title role of Hedwig and the Angry Inch. And in 2004, he wins his first Tony Award for playing John Wilkes Booth in the Broadway revival of Assassins. And then in 2012, he plays Juan Perón in the revival of Evita, which Kenny Howard had a hand in producing. And then in 2015, he wins his second Tony Award for portraying Bruce, the father, in Fun Home. And a lot of our Orlando listeners, you may have seen him on stage here at the Dr. Phillips Center for the Performing Arts when the whole Broadway cast came down on their one night off and did a staged reading version, concert version of Fun Home here for us after the Pulse tragedies. And on TV, he's known for his appearances as the Observer in the Netflix show Fringe. I don't know if I forgot anything. I'm sure I have, but we are fucking delighted to welcome to the showcase two-time Tony Award winner, Michael Cerveris.
And I am fucking delighted to be here.
We're fucking delighted to have you.
I have to say that description makes it sound so much easier than I remember it being.
That is not always the case. So first, tell us where you are.
I was in New York until March 25th, and I, had been holed up in my apartment there, and I just decided at a certain point that it wasn't doing me any good to be there, and I wasn't able to help people in any way from there that I wasn't able to do from elsewhere. So I found a short-term rental place up in northeastern Pennsylvania on a river in the middle of mountains, and I've just kind of exiled myself up here for a while, hopefully on my way to see my father in Pittsburgh, but I kind of didn't want to go from New York straight to Pittsburgh without making sure that I was as disease-free as I could figure out.
There's some severe social distancing.
Yeah.
How are you doing through all of this?
Well, I think I've been, doing the 7 stages of grief thing that we're all doing, like every morning, afternoon, and evening. Like there are days when it feels like if I just tried a little bit, I could convince myself that everything is really fine, and nature is kind of spring is happening, and I can sometimes believe that everything is kind of fine and is going to be fine. And then there are other times when I'm just in such anxiety for myself, although I feel safe and secure here, but really more for my friends and family and people who are in much tougher situations than I am, or just the unknown of all of this. Who knows what's going to happen to any single person that we love and care about, no matter what age they are, no matter how healthy they are. And then just looking at the completely failed response on the part of the people who are supposed to be handling this, from government, federal government on down, depending on where you live, and knowing that people are really kind of on their own, and it's really terrifying. And then especially when I think about my friends in the arts and in the theater, and the uncertainty of what is going to be out there in the future and how it's all going to have to change. Sometimes I feel like it's a great opportunity for us to suddenly become more, have more ingenuity and more creative and think outside the box. And it's a chance in a way to kind of reinvent a lot of failed systems, even in our business, even in the theater. And I hope we take the opportunity to do that, but you don't know.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, the uncertainty is one thing that's really, I think, gotten to us, and it's just, that's a lot to think about when, and so you try not to, you try to take it more day by day. And but I don't think anyone, once we start going back to work, I don't think even the people with the most monotonous jobs are ever going to think that they're as monotonous as they first were, because this is kind of extreme monotonous.
And doing this is one way of working through that. And hopefully when it's done, we're reminded how much our connectivity to one another actually, what value it really has.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes I wonder if thinking about a time when it's going to be done is actually not the way we should be thinking about it, that in a way it's not ever going to be done, because it's changed everything in ways that will continue to have ramifications even once there's a vaccine, even once we know things about how delicate the balance that we've all been walking for so long. We now see how the holes in the safety net and who's really valuable in our society at given times. And so hopefully we won't be done with a lot of the things that we're learning and getting to think about now.
Yeah.
I definitely.
Well, I had the good fortune of seeing you at a dress rehearsal for Evita, due to a well-timed trip to visit Kenny in New York. And then when he said he had to leave to go to dress rehearsal, I was like, well, you're not going to leave me alone, are you? So I got to see you just about a week before you opened, and I honestly thought that
was I still doing the tango at that point?
Yes, yes. And Fun Home.
Oh, well, yeah, I just was going to say, I know that people are still talking about your performance here at Fun Home, and I just kind of wanted to let people know, like, a little bit about what all you do for the community, because we were doing Evita, and then the Sandy Hook happened, and that was the first time that we did From Broadway with Love, and you actually were a part of that. You sang Finishing the Hat, I think. And
I sang with the kids too. I think sang Sunday with the kids.
And then when Orlando happened, I called Van and we talked about doing the From Broadway with Love here. And then one of the first people that I reached out to was you. And you and I were Facebooking like crazy, and Michael was all in. And then his producers had this great idea, which it was a great idea, to come down and bring, because I don't think that show would have necessarily played Orlando at any other time. Eventually, I think it would, but we'll never know because you guys came and did it. But that it just, in the end, the producers, we had to talk with lighting and made sure that we could just switch over, because we were switching over the very next day, that our lighting plots were at least somewhat amenable to each other, which they were, and we didn't change anything. And then you were going to ask, you asked if you could stay, because you did have a show the next day in New York. You really wanted to be a part of From Broadway with Love.
I did.
But your producer said no, and rightfully so. I completely understand. But he wanted to be there in spirit. But in the end, Orlando won out because we had two shows.
We had back one night after the other. Fun Home first, and then From Broadway with Love next. So on the subject of Fun Home, since we can't allow you to perform because of equity regulations, we do have a clip that relates to Fun Home. Could you set that up for us?
Yes, I think this is, it's from a series that Broadway.com does, I think, called Character Studies. And they will go into an actor's dressing room and just sort of follow their process, their nightly process from the time they get to the theater till the time they go on stage, and what their makeup and, costume process is, if that's complicated. For me, it always seems to involve putting on somebody else's hair at some point or another. And then just sort of talking to you about your internal process and how you arrived at the character and stuff. They're really beautiful little studies of actors and at work. And so this is one of those from Fun Home.
All right, Rich, let's take a look at that.
I'm Michael Cerveris, and I play Bruce Bechtel in Fun Home. Bruce Bechtel is the father of the family. He wears a lot of hats. He runs the family funeral home. He's also a high school English teacher. He's also has a love of doing all kinds of restoration. So he's restored the Victorian home that the family lives in Beech Creek, Pennsylvania. He's also been a closeted gay man his whole life. I've had a lot of demanding parts before, but I don't think I've ever had anything that has been as difficult night after night to carry around with me as Bruce. It may be because there's no release in this. Bruce gets to the precipice of maybe understanding something about himself, and at that moment his story ends. I think that's a lot of what makes it such an emotionally draining thing to do. I have a lot of photographs around the dressing room. Some of them are pictures of my own family in the period that's covered by the show in the 70s. A lot of them with me trying desperately to be David Cassidy. These photos are all of the actual Bechtel home in Pennsylvania. I'm such a dog person. My dog Gibson, who I adopted when I was doing Tommy, passed away about, I guess, almost 5 years ago now, and maybe it's just sort of the emphasis on family and home and everything that this play is. I just started really noticing the absence of a little furry creature in my house. I named her Evangeline. She seems to love everything about being a theater dog. David Zinn's costumes for the show are so great. My dad, wore those kinds of outfits, and so it's very 70s hip professor sort of wear. His appearance and how he wanted to present himself to the world was extremely important to him. It's why the scene where Allison says, "You're wearing a girl color," is just devastating to him. He didn't want to draw attention unnecessarily. This part has taken everything that I've learned in the past 30 plus years since I got out of college. I feel like I'm in exactly the role and the production and the story that I'm supposed to be doing. That and the fact that it's resonating the way it does with people. It feels like we're just getting started.
Well, that really is a great one. There's another one I think of in Evita too, when you're getting dressed for Perron. They like to follow you around getting dressed.
Well, because I have really nice dressing rooms usually, so they're usually nice locations to film in.
Well, thank you so much for coming out. Before we let you go, is there anything that you'd like to say to everyone who's watching?
Well, first of all, I want to encourage everybody to use the URL at the bottom of the screen here to help support the theater community in the Orlando area and in Florida. It's beyond just taking care of actors who are out of work and who don't know where their next job is coming from, but there are so many people connected to the theater that are suffering now and are going to be suffering for a long time and don't have the advantages of some of the other sources of funding and relief right now. So I know there are a lot of demands on your generosity right now, but anything that you could do right now would really make a big difference and mean a lot to people.
Thank you very
so much. And thanks for being with us. Bye-bye.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Everybody stay safe.
Great. Listen.